Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the FPL Wire powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zofa, and I'm joined today by India's reigning FPL number one late riser. Ready for the new season, Ella?
Excited, especially since I think I'm very close to my final team and just can't wait to get go.
And we also have FPL Twitter stat guru, Big Man Baka. Ready for the new season, Big Man?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zafar. Really excited for the new season already, and I honestly can't wait for things to kick off.
How's
Great.
the team coming along, Bakar? Close to the final one?
Yeah, I hope so. I haven't tinkered too much. So basically, my first and second draft are more or less the same. So I hope it stays more or less the same to the deadline because I don't like changing things too much too late. I like stability.
Spoiler alert,
Nice.
it'll definitely change. So, a little background on DSG, guys. DSG is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to how you need it. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. Visit dreamsetgo.co for more. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all the stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of important things just before game week one. We're going to be talking through a few important hot topics like what our wildcard strategies are and what wildcard strategies are there that you can adopt. Planning for the United and City assets. We're going to be talking about Chelsea's new shiny toy, who's in my team at the moment, Kai Havertz. And we're going to talk about whether it's feasible to start the season without everybody's favorite player, Mo Salah. After that, we're going to take a deeper look at three teams. We're going to be talking about Newcastle, Everton, and Leicester. We're going to take you through the lessons that we've learned so far in preseason. We're going to look at a few fixtures more closely, talk about clean sheets, captaincies. Our stat man here has three top stats for the game week. We're going to be taking you through a few differentials that we like, eventually ending with our teams and the Q&A.
Yeah, so let's jump in right into the first topic, the wildcard. LR, what's your thoughts? What's your wildcard strategy?
So my wildcard strategy at the moment is keeping and having an open mind and adapting. I keep talking about adapting all the time. So, and my thoughts here are that as long as you're open to wildcarding early, if shit goes through the roof, or if you're okay to save it and take a few big hits, just so that you have an early ideal team, you're okay. What I've done is for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, I've made a list of pros of saving the wildcard and using the wildcard, and I think it'll be a nice discussion for us to have. So, what are the pros of saving your wildcard? The transfer window ends in game week 4, so there's going to be a lot of new signings right around game week 3 and 4, and it'd be nice to build your team after that. We've seen a lot of people back out of their teams already. We've seen Laporte and Mahrez have COVID, so there's a little bit of uncertainty that might happen during the course of the season. So it might be handy to save the wild card for when that happens. And then there's always the advantage of handling the blank and double. We might have a blank and a double game week in game week 18 and 19, and we need to use our wild card by game week 16 this season, not by game week 19, by game week 16 this season. So it might be handy to wildcard just around that time, so you're able to take advantage of the blanks and doubles that come around game week 18, 19. Now, I personally feel like it's all right. I think if there are COVID uncertainties, I think you'll be able to manage them without having a wild card. I feel like if there is a blank and double in game week 18, 19, you can start planning for that around game week 15, and you have other chips as well which you can use to tackle game week 18 and 19. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, and I've listed down some pros of using the wildcard early. People take too long early season to get the ideal team, and I feel like this also leads to some sort of a butterfly effect where most of the transfers you're making in game week 3, 4, 5, 6 is to cure the mess that you have in your team and not get an ideal team. And if I feel like if you wildcard early and if you get it right, you're able to get an ideal team for a period of 10, 15 game weeks where you're able to get ahead of the crowd. So think about that butterfly effect as well. There's a lot of good fixture shifts in game week 4. You can get the right City and United assets without overthinking that too much. Uh, Also, the Todd Cantwells and the Kakra Sönsus, they all emerge in the first 3 or 4 game weeks. So you're filling the team up with your right glue guys, the right enablers if you wildcard early. So there's a lot of advantages of wildcarding early. And if you so you can either, like me, have an open mind, and if shit goes wrong, you can decide to wildcard early, or you can have a strategy which I think is right, to wildcard early no matter what. And then you can definitely hit the first 2 or 3 game weeks hard, attacking teams that have good fixtures like Arsenal. So those are my thoughts on the wildcard and what I'm going to do.
Big man, what about you?
Yes, I basically agree with most of what LR Late Rise has already said. I don't want to sort of book a wild card in advance, but usually I do like wild carding early. I'm not exactly planning on when to do it, but but the team I've built is sort of for the first 3-4 fixtures, so it has. Um, it gives me flexibility to decide, if things are going well, then I might not wildcard early on, but if by game week 3 or 4 I realize that I don't exactly have the flexibility to jump to the right players that I need, then I'll reconsider that strategy.
The season you
But
finished fourth, Barker. Did you wildcard
yeah,
early that season?
no, actually I didn't. I wildcard in around at some point in November, I think. So it must have been like game week 10, 11, something like that. Um, this year, I you have to balance the pros and cons. I've looked at both, and as you mentioned, there's a blank and a double coming up in game week 18 and 19. Um, but yes, like yourself, I'm not reading too much into it as well, because I reckon we can use the free hit for one of those game weeks and plan our transfers around the other week. So at the moment, I'm leaning more towards an early wildcard, and I think the game week 3 wildcard strategy is it's popular, and it's popular for a reason. I kind of like it because it makes it easier for you to jump on City assets, United assets, and Wolves particularly, because Wolves I really like from an FA point of view, and they don't even have Europa this year. And Wolves, their first 2 fixtures are hard. Sheffield away, City at home game week 2, but after that they have a beautiful run like West Ham, Fulham, Leeds, Newcastle, Crystal Palace. Yeah, I mean, you'd want a piece of that for sure. So I mean, I like that. It allows it allows me to get ahead of the curve if I wildcard in game week 3.
Do you think the fear of overthinking an early wildcard is legit? Like, people are too scared to wildcard early; they think it's too early. Do you think that's fair, having that fear?
Not necessarily. I mean, if it's the right time to jump ahead of the curve, then why not? I mean, just be aggressive and go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Your thoughts off?
Generally, I prefer to leave the wildcard as late as possible because it allows me to take a few punts here and there, like break a few rules, which I usually have. But this season is quite unique when you have teams that who perform very well for fantasy, such as United and Man City, missing out on game week 1. So I think some adaptation is probably required there. So I'm going to try to leave it as late as possible. But if I feel I have sufficient information to use it, I'll probably use it when I need to. So I haven't penciled it in a specific date that I want to wildcard, but I might wildcard in game week 4, 5, 6, whenever the team needs it. To be fair.
What do you generally end up doing?
Generally, I try to keep it till about the second international break. I think that's been the most common period because I think by then we have a good idea of team selections, formations. Because the first 3-4 weeks can again be a bit weird. You don't have the transfer window closing by then. So only when the 4 weeks after the transfer window closing, you can see which players have lost their positions, which players are playing in different positions, and it becomes more about actual quality than just like early season form.
And have you seen any sort of trend when you look back? Because you've had a few good seasons. Anything in particular, whenever you wildcarded early, it's led to a good season. Do you see any sort of trend?
See, the thing is, what I've noticed sometimes using the wildcard early actually makes me a bit sharper. If I have the wildcard in my back pocket, sometimes I'm more prone to take risky punts and make transfers that I wouldn't necessarily make. Because the feeling is, oh, I have a wildcard, I can always get out, I can use it. So, and this is something that I've heard Mark Southerns also advocate. He likes to use his wildcard quite early. So this is something I picked up in my early days. So it is a good balance required between not being left behind. The more you get left behind early on, the more you tend to make like rash decisions. So it's a fine balance that has to be struck there.
Yep. Because I was looking back at some of the good seasons I have. Every good season that I've had in the past I wildcarded early. So this is something that's at the
You
back
know,
of.
a late riser. Another point I'd like to make here. I mean, this is something I didn't mention earlier, but allowing for if you sort of plan around game week 3 or 4 wild card, by that time we might have sufficient information on who's the Chelsea midfielder to get. For example, Pulisic might be back. Who's the best Wolves midfielder to get? That's a very pertinent question because in my opinion, I think they're underpriced, and I know you're a big fan of Foden and Jota. Allowing to wait and watch for the first 3 game weeks and answer that question. And these can be great enablers when we make a team in game week 3 and 4. So I think that's another point to take into consideration. Same goes for Ali and Son. I mean, we don't know right now who's the better pick, but I mean, by that time we might have an answer to the question.
Exactly, and I just like to add that if you're not sure and you really want to save your wild card for the blanket double in game week 18-19, don't be afraid to take aggressive hits early in the season because you don't want to keep chasing the ideal team
Yes.
for the first 3 or 4 weeks. Take a -8, -12, it's fine. There's no problem because it's setting up long term.
I agree.
All right, let's move to our next hot topic.
Havertz. Let's do Havertz first. Let's get that out of the way because United, Man City, I think, is a bigger topic.
Yeah, let's talk about Havertz. Sof, your man, your team.
I really want to get Havertz in my team. I think he eventually is going to turn out to be the best FPL asset in the team when he plays in his preferred position. Now, what's happening now is Pulisic probably isn't going to be fit for game week 1. Ziyech looks dodgy as well. So what I think was likely going to happen is we are going to see Havertz on the right with probably Cho on the left with Mount playing the number 10 role. Now that number 10 role is probably where all the action is going to come from. And as soon as we get Havertz in that position is when I think his returns are going to flow. So I've currently got Son in there as sort of a placeholder for the first 3 weeks. So I'm going to wait and watch for the first 3 weeks. And if Hazard looks fire, I might get him week 2. No promises there. So that's where I stand.
All right, I'm with you. I'm big on Havertz. I have him in my team. I think he's gonna be in my team. I think he's gonna start game week 1. And even if he plays on the right, I'm okay with it because what I tend to notice is that his strength is that he's a big guy and he's got lots of pace for a big guy. So he always tends to run behind the striker. And what I've noticed is Werner open. You mentioned on the last pod that Werner isn't your trademark number 9. He tends to drift on the left and he leaves a lot of space for the midfielders to come and attack. So I feel like Havertz is going to be taking advantage of this space, and I feel like he's going to score a bunch of goals. I feel like he's extremely underpriced and is going to be in everybody's team in the first 3 or 4 game weeks. That's why I'm jumping early, going in game week 1.
That's a big call.
Yeah.
I'm starting with him as well. Late riser. I really like him at that price, and I mean, I know this is a stat you quote very frequently, but Chelsea had a better XG than Liverpool last season, so they tend to create a huge amount of big chances. And as I even said in the first episode, that I'm looking to double up on Chelsea myself. Now that Ziyech is injured, I've basically swapped him to Havertz.
And I think just on that Ziyech injury, we're not. I mean, Lampard could be telling us on Thursday or Friday that he's playing. I mean, it was a knock as far as I know, so we don't know much.
Yeah, I mean, the reports are that he'll probably struggle to make it, but I mean, as of now, that's the information we have. And apparently, Havertz has looked like Chelsea's best player in training as well. So that is another factor that has sort of influenced my decision to have him in my team right now. And he's at that price point where I can sort of upgrade him kind of easily if I want at any point, should I decide not to wildcard early. So that's another point that sort of goes in his favor, that I like the price point he's at.
Dude, he's a best player in training because nobody's there in training right now. They're all on international duty.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, but he's the German boy wonder. I mean, he's been talked about. He scored 17, 12 goals. And I mean, yeah, it's the Bundesliga. It's just Zoff showing... Zoff being Zoff and showing precaution when it comes to
I'm
Chelsea.
getting FOMO. Both of you guys are going with Havertz. I'm the Chelsea fan, but at least it's nice. Makes me feel good about Chelsea's prospects.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the plan now to get Man United and Man City assets. Why don't you kick us off, Ella?
So at the moment, I have Bruno. I think the Man City plan is pretty simple. Oba is going to be either De Bruyne or Sterling game week 3. And I like having Werner in my team as well because he's around the Aguero price bracket. If at all, Werner doesn't look good in the first 2 game weeks, I'm happy to jump to Aguero should he be fit. For United, so I'm not really sure about this, but at the moment I have Bruno Fernandes in my game week 1 team on the bench, and I feel like the advantage with this is that I can react to game week 1 more than having a predetermined transfer. If you're thinking about, so it's either punting in my midfield or having Bruno Fernandes on my bench and playing somebody else. I currently have a 4.5 million defender playing in space. It's all right to have a United player on your bench as long as you have 11 decent players playing, because United have good fixtures. They've got Crystal Palace, Brighton, Spurs, and Newcastle. I want, if not two, at least one United attacker for these fixtures. And at the moment, I have Fernandes on my bench. Might get another player in game week 2 or react to what game week 1 shows. What about you, Bakar?
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow you on the strategy on Aubameyang out in Game Week 3 for either De Bruyne or Sterling, because Arsenal have City and Liverpool in Game Week 3 and 5. Liverpool in 3 and City in 5. So, I mean, Auba's fixtures are actually terrible. So, regardless of how he does in the opening 2 fixtures, he won't be in my team come Game Week 3. And as far as the United assets are concerned, I'm thinking of selling Salah actually for Bruno. Because I'm going to start with Salah because I think he's the standout captaincy option in Game Week 1. So I don't want to go without him, but neither do I want to be without Bruno in Game Week 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to sell Salah for Bruno in Game Week 2. And I'm not exactly too afraid of the move because Salah in after the Leeds fixtures, he's like 3 of the next 4 away, including Chelsea away, Everton away, Villa away. Villa have improved defensively post restart. I don't expect those to be easy games, and precedent suggests historical evidence as well that Salah doesn't do too well away from home, particularly when Mane is also in the team. So I think those funds can be better spread elsewhere. I mean, where do you stand on that, Zoff?
I always believe in putting my money on the pitch with like a lot of uncertainties. You don't know if United necessarily will hit the same form they did last year. So my plan is to probably monitor the situation till like for another couple of weeks. So I've got Ali right now in place, who not Ali, sorry, Son, who could become a Man United player. But I definitely am not going to have one on the bench for the next week. I'll probably get in a City player in Game Week 3 to captain. I think they play Leicester that week. I think that's what I've got
Yep.
penciled in.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
about it.
I'm debating that too. I can either punt, but the thing is, I don't actually like any punts in midfield for game week 1, outside of maybe Son or a West Ham midfielder. So that's why I feel like just let Bruno stay in there, play a defender, compromise game week 1, and then
So
get
my,
one.
my reasoning for bringing them also late now. See, somebody you bring in like Bruno is rarely going to be for just like 3-4 weeks. Somebody you bring him in now, even if you have to take a hit. Let's say you have some other injury in your team, he's probably going to pay off that hit over a period of 5 to 6 weeks anyway.
Sure,
Rather get that potential and that money out on the pitch for Game Week 1. Now, I think there was some talk of Salah because I think now that's a big topic we have to move on to next.
Yes.
No FOMO. So I think LR, you've not got Mo in your team. You know my
Yeah.
position on Mo.
Yeah, I know.
I love Mo.
I,
So I'll
I
leave that to you.
I know how both of y'all feel about Mo Salah, but I'll and I think on Twitter there's a big debate in terms of teams going with Mo and teams going without Mo, and I feel like both are right. It depends on what your strategy is, and so until Saturday, I've had Mo in my team always, and then I just uh, tinkered without Mo, and the team I got without Mo was a team I was much happier with. Now the only reason I wouldn't I would have more, despite having a much better balanced team in game week 1, is if he was the standout captaincy option. I do feel like he's one of the most standout captaincy options. I don't think that Aubameyang is a bad captaincy option. I don't think that Timo Werner is a bad captaincy option for game week 1. So I'm okay because I know that I don't want Salah in game week 2 and game week 3. I'm very non-emotional when it comes to my big hitters. I'm focused on my fixtures, and my thinking is right. So if you're looking at the second half of the season, we had City scoring 50 goals. So they are by far the most attacking team in the country. Liverpool aren't as attacking as them. From game week 20 to 38, Pool scored 39 goals, and Chelsea and United scored 36 goals. Now the big hitters for United and Chelsea are going to cost you 9 million, 10 million. The big hitters for or 8.5 million, and the big hitters for Liverpool are going to cost you 12 million. That doesn't mean that these Liverpool premiums are bad assets, but I'm going to go there when the fixtures dictate so, and I don't think the fixtures dictate getting Mo Salah in the first three game weeks. And generally, I don't worry too much about him being highly owned or whatever. So that's why I feel like there is a case to be made to pump in one additional big hitter, or have a better all-rounded team. And I think this could become a hot topic of debate throughout the season, because you I feel like United and Chelsea will run Liverpool close in terms of the amounts of goals they're scoring. They have genuine assets that didn't exist last season. That's why I feel like that this might be a topic of conversation throughout the season.
A couple
You
of
know,
questions. Sorry, go ahead,
yeah.
TFF.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the main point regarding the whole conversation is basically whether you can afford to go without him for the Leeds fixture. As you said, you don't really care how highly owned he is, but I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this, they might they might sort of tinker around without Mo Salah in their team as well. But it basically comes down to the fact whether you're willing to risk the fact that you don't have Mo Salah in your team in game week 1, and when he gets a hat trick, and when he's highly owned and everyone has him as captain. So
I don't even think he's the best captaincy option in Liverpool based on what I've seen in preseason. Mane looks sharper.
Yes, that's another good point actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll come to this later, but I mean, this is the point that do you really want to sort of risk going without Salah, who is on paper going to be the most popular captain in the first game week, and if he bangs and you don't own him, then you're already behind the curve when and it's only game week 1. So that's something to worry about. But other than that, I get what you're saying.
I mean, you're selling Salah game week 2. So it's just one game week, and
the reason why I'm selling Salah in game week 2 is because I won't have him captain after that in any of the 4 fixtures, even if I own him. So that's why I'm selling him. But in game week 1, I need him as a captain. Like that's basically.
So it all comes down to whether you think Aubameyang is a good enough captain for game week 1.
So,
yeah.
So my question to you now, a couple of things. Now, how much does that preseason form play into your thinking?
It doesn't play too much into my thinking. It just so the decision that was there was either I have Kai Havertz plus Bruno Fernandes, or whether I have a Mo Salah and a 5.5 million midfielder. I only saw one winner there in terms of team balance and team structure, and I felt like going there. I'm not saying Mo Salah is a bad asset. He's a perfectly good asset. He's a perfectly good captaincy option. It's just strategy, and I like going based on what I see in terms of fixtures and preseason sharpness, and that I'm willing to take that gamble. Not everybody is going to take as many gambles, but I see fair enough reasoning behind this move.
Do you think the lack of crowd plays a part also in your decision? Do you think Liverpool will be worse at Anfield this season?
I don't know. I feel like teams will. I don't know what kind of a season Liverpool are going to have. I'm a little worried about them because they didn't strengthen after last season, and I feel like teams will. This happened with Chelsea, if you notice. They won the title. They never strengthened next season. And the next season, and teams figured how to play them. I feel like Liverpool might face the same. I'm happy to wait and watch. And I also am placing all my trust in Bielsa, and also I'm not in town this weekend. I won't be watching the Liverpool Leeds game, so it's much easier for me.
yeah, it's tough watching Salah. Let me tell you, it's really tough. I'd probably not watch the game then.
It's my birthday on the first day of the season on 12, so I'm going and celebrating with my friends, and I'm not going to be watching.
Happy birthday in advance.
Nice, great. So let's move on now, guys, to the next section where we start looking at various teams, and we will start number 1 looking at Newcastle. So why don't you start it off, Bakar? How's your take on Newcastle?
So Newcastle, I was very sort of surprised by how attacking Newcastle were post restart. I mentioned this in one of my tweets very recently as well, that I looked at their stats for their attacking stats, and before the restart they were actually bottom for shots inside the box, but post restart their shots inside the box per game nearly doubled. I was kind of taken aback by that because it was maybe the fact that they were safe and they were playing more freely, but that makes me think that some of their assets might be underpriced. I mean, Wilson just got added today, I think, and he's 6.5. They've also signed Frazier, so I'm sure at some point we'll probably find someone in that Newcastle attacking four players who were basically bargains to own.
If somebody wants to punt on a Newcastle attacker game week 1, who would you recommend?
Yeah, that's what I was coming to. Funnily enough, I think this might make Saint Maximin a better option as well, because Frazier's going to add creativity. Wilson is a lethal finisher. I mean, I'd probably, their fixtures are really good. West Ham and Brighton are good fixtures to start off with, particularly the second game at home to Brighton. I think I'll probably have one Newcastle attacker in my team. I have Saint Maximin right now, but I've always been a huge fan of Callum Wilson, contrary to popular opinion, regarding him being a troll. He's done well for me whenever I've owned him. So, I mean, I might go there if I find a way for him in my team. 6.5
is an interesting price.
Exactly, for proven Premier League striker as well. I like that price.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Newcastle attackers?
See, when I look at a team in the bottom half of the table, I try to find what's their identity. Certain teams are fundamentally attacking teams, like Bournemouth. Now Wilson was now moving from a fundamental attacking team to a Steve Bruce team, so it's completely at the other end of the spectrum. So they could take some time to adapt. So now as you can see, the graph we've put up over here, it says that Newcastle was still, after the restart, still the 5th lowest team for shots in the box. So it's not like they were setting the world on fire in terms of creating chances and all that stuff. This says here they scored 13 goals. I think 3 of them were against Bournemouth, when Bournemouth were absolutely appalling. So I do have ASM in my team right now. I'm not that confident about it. I do feel better now that they've signed Frazier and Wilson, because he's now no longer the only source of creativity. They're going to have to mark Frazier on the left wing also. So, and he does have somebody better now than Joe Linton to finish off those chances. So to that extent, it definitely does improve their prospects. But in general,
Gale scored 4 goals since restart, so there were chances getting created.
Correct. They were definitely better, but the preseason form has been very, very poor. So that set off a few alarm bells in my head. So in terms of their attack, I've got ASM, but I'm not that confident about it right now. What about you?
My thoughts on the Newcastle attacker are, I'm always thinking, what attackers can I have playing against them? Because I like captaining players against Newcastle, especially when half their defense is injured right now. And I feel like the fixtures are a little bit of a trap. I like the West Ham fixture, but outside of that, I feel like Brighton, Spurs, and Burnley and
Not that
United,
easy.
they're actually defensively decent teams. I'm happy to let everybody else punt, play the waiting game, and see what happens. Because I feel like, Fraser and Wilson are good buys. I like Saint Max, but the problem is that if you saw post restart, Saint Max and Almiron had to do everything by themselves. They were carrying the ball from midfield and just running and dribbling past 2-3 opponents, pulling off an Adama, as I like to call it, and hoping that something happens. I feel like the biggest problem is midfield. They don't have genuine ball progressors, and they need to create everything themselves. I'm hoping Fraser solves a little bit of this problem. There was an interesting stat where Newcastle had the lowest average XG per shot taken. So the quality of the shots they took weren't really great, So I'm happy to. I like Fraser and Wilson, but I'm happy to play the waiting game. And also, you talk about Newcastle playing for Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce had 2 versions: one before he secured promotion, and one after he secured promotion, where he just said, "I don't care, do what you guys want, play, attack, etc." Which is why their stats doubled. But even they doubled, they were still in the bottom 8 statistically when it comes to attack. So I don't like them too much. ASM at 5.5, fair punt. Wilson, if you're playing a game week 3 wildcard, fair punt. I wouldn't look at anything else.
Defense? Any of you guys planning on getting any of the defenders?
No.
Nope.
What is it? Dubravka. There's no Dubravka, so there's also that concern over there. So let's move on to our next team now. Leicester. Lots to talk about here. Why don't you kick us off, LR?
Leicester's an interesting one because they genuinely do have good fixtures at the top. But I don't know how Brendan is going to shape up, because he had, I think, 2 or 3 formations post restart. He was struggling. I think Madison just might make it to game week 1, definitely make it to game week 2, which is a good sign because I think they relied a lot on him for creativity and struggled without him. But the main issue for me with Leicester is like Poole, a lot of the creativity and a lot of the attacking impetus comes through their wings. Now they've downgraded their wing backs massively. They've gone down from Pereira, who I think after Trent is the most attacking wing back in the league, and Chilwell to Justin, who's foraying forward, but I think he's average. And now they've signed a new player. I don't know how he's going to settle in. I don't know too much about him. And they were the guys who were progressing the ball up front and creating those chances. So again, while they have good fixtures, I like them as a. I like if you want to punt on Vardy early on just for 2 or 3 game weeks, but I feel like Kane offers you more as a punt. I feel like Ings and Jimenez and Marshall and Timo Werner offer you more as a punt. So I'm not too hot on them at the moment. If you want to go for a 4.5 million defender, fair enough. But again, uh, I don't know what's going to happen when Pereira is going to be back fit. I think around game week 3, game week 4, game week 5. And Madison, a lot of people fall for, in my opinion, the Madison trap. I feel like he's a great player, but he's not a really good FPL player. He's not explosive.
Yeah.
He takes a lot of shots from outside the box. He has set pieces. So what
that 9-0 was painful. I remember watching that. That it was, I think, only the 8th goal that he finally got some sort of involvement in, and I think that sums him up.
Exactly. If there is somebody I recommend from Newcastle, and I'm hoping he's nailed, it's Harvey Barnes. I've liked this player since the beginning of last season. I had him for his hat trick. I feel like he's direct. I feel like he's aggressive. He's always in and around the box. When somebody's crossing in, he's always in and around the box to tap it in as well. And he's the right age. So if there is one player, 7 million midfielder, good punt considering the fixtures, go Harvey Barnes.
Big man,
Your
what do you
thoughts?
think?
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at the fixtures, I mean, West Brom, Burnley, West Ham, Aston Villa, 3 of those at home. I mean, these are dreamy fixtures to start off with. I mean, you can't think of you can't basically pen better fixtures than these, even if you wanted to. But when I've watched a bit of Leicester in preseason as well, I wasn't too impressed. Even post restart, they were struggling for creativity. Wadi wasn't getting too many chances. Other than in 1 or 2 games, he struggled basically for service. And I like I mentioned, I mean, I'm not too hot on Leicester attacking wise. I'm considering Harvey Barnes because he's 7 million, and I think he allows for a good route into the Leicester attack given their fixtures. But then again, with Harvey Barnes, I'm a bit wary of when he might drop in and out of the team because he's not entirely secure, particularly when Brendan likes switching to 3 at the back, which he did post restart a lot of times, and that is when he played Inacho with Vardy and Barnes kind of dropped out. I mean, Barnes, I expect Barnes to start the first 1 or 2 fixtures at least because Leicester don't have too many centre backs available. So I mean, he's a punt for sure, but the one player I recommend is probably James Justin because he's only 4.5. I think Leicester are far better bet for clean sheets rather than attacking returns. Yeah. Even without Evans, I think he's a decent bet. Even post restart, I mean, when their defensive stats weren't that good. I mean, I noticed a huge disparity in their numbers at home and away. Because their numbers away from home were like shambolic. They were almost conceding like nearly 2 big chances per game, but at home they were pretty decent. I mean, they didn't concede too many big chances. They were in the top 3 for big chances conceded at home in the restart.
Can you take that into consideration when the only person playing from their first choice defense compared to last season is so and so 3 new defenders?
I mean, yeah, I can agree with it, but when you look at Burnley, Villa, West Ham at home, I mean, even then I'd expect even like a sort of a newish Leicester backline to keep them out because I don't really rate any of these teams too much for attacking returns, particularly Burnley and Villa. I mean, those are 2 fixtures I really like. Another thing I noticed in preseason was that Justin was going like he was actually attacking on the right. I mean, he might be playing left back because they already signed a right back. But I mean, if he plays, I see that Brendan likes him to sort of go forward and create chances for his strikers. So I mean, that's a good sign. I like the look of him.
I was visiting the Leicester forums, and the guy they signed, he can play left or right. So
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that he's nailed. I mean,
He's
Rogers
pretty.
could Rogers could prefer Thomas, and the guy they signed can play on the other side. And there's a little bit of talk about Justin, if they play three at the back, that Justin might play the right centre back as well. So just a little additional point to keep in mind.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Y- Your thoughts of?
So the table we have got over here, it shows that Leicester were actually fourth for shots in the box after the restart, but they scored only 9 goals. So there's something definitely wrong over there. I think something is broken. Maybe something that maybe they're too dependent on Vardy to finish the chances, and when Vardy is slightly out of form, their attack collapses because they were creating chances but just not converting them, and so that sort of set up alarms in my head. So that attack is somewhere it's something I'm probably not going near.
The second half of the season, their stats read 6 wins, 5 draws, 8 losses.
Exactly. So that says it all, really. So I need to see something. The fixtures are good. I think early on in the season, form plays a lot more than fixtures because it's all about who starts well. It's only when you get to game week 7, 8 that really the fixtures start to determine the performance. So I think Justin is worth a punt because I think he's first choice. He's actually pretty attacking also. So it's not that he's just a 4.5.
Exactly.
So
Are you confident he's first choice though?
I think so because I watched one of their preseason games and I think he was the only player to play 90 minutes. He played 45 on the left and 45 on the right. So as a utility player, I think he's quite useful. So I would, apart from Justin, I can't really advocate anybody else there.
All right, let's move forward to our third team that we're going to
Everton.
inspect closely. Why don't you start us off on Everton's off?
So Everton, I think now, what was the problem last year? We saw that they were, after the restart, now we have it on the table here, they were third lowest for big chances. So that's 9 big chances created in 9 games. That's absolutely horrendous. So they definitely need to improve on that. And I really rate Ancelotti as a manager. And he's not your typical Italian manager who's conservative and ultra defensive. He's actually quite attacking in his philosophy. So I'm sure he will get this team up and running now. They've signed Hammers, they've signed Allen. I think Doucouré is on his way. So they've sorted out what needs sorting out. So I do think they're definitely a team to watch this season, and there's a lot of value there. The assets are
They've got
underpriced.
fixtures. Are you going in early on them?
No, I think probably not because I want to see how Hammers and all these guys settle in. And DCL is on my radar. Hammers at 7.5 is on my radar. And somebody you mentioned earlier, Kenny, at 4.5. I think he's Coleman's natural successor. I watched a bit of Bundesliga last year. He was very good. He's quite rated in the Bundesliga. So I think he can definitely have a breakthrough season. What about you?
He could be the value defender pick of the season if he's starting, because I feel Coleman's done. He's old and I don't think he's suited to play the Premier League anymore. So just something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. So what's your strategy on it? I think you already have DCL, don't you?
I have DCL. I'm big on Everton. A lot of people are, I feel like Carlo stopped caring post restart because he knew that he didn't have the midfielders he wanted. I mean, he had to play Sigurdsson and Davies in midfield throughout restart, and I don't really rate them. Now, you need to understand that the team has completely changed since then. We have Allen, who's rated as one of the best ball recoverers in Europe, in all of Europe. He's that good a player. You have Doucouré, who I rate. You have James Rodriguez. 2 seasons that Rodriguez had under Ancelotti, he's got close to 20 returns in both seasons. And he's still not really old. He's 28 or 29, I
He's
think.
in his prime. He's 29. He's in his prime.
He's in his prime, and when you combine that midfield with the front two of DCL and Richardson, there's a lot of quality in that team. So I'm big on Everton because people are just placing too much importance to what happened post restart. Now, if you really want to talk about the kind of bounce that they had once Ancelotti did join the team, game week 20 to 30, I was looking at some stats. They were behind only City in the entire league for the number of big chances they created, and DCL was on top of the charts for shots in the box and big chances as well. He's 7 million. I really like his fixtures, and that's why I'm going with him, because I like the players they've signed. I'm not paying attention to what happened after game week 30 because Davies, and I like being early.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you, Bakar?
I mean, when I look at the Everton's fixtures, I mean, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton, from game week 2 onwards. I mean, they're really good fixtures as well, and I like Calvert-Lewin personally, but I am probably not going to start with him because I think the first fixture against Spurs is probably a bit too tough for me to jump right away. And I also think that I'd like to see a bit more of how their team combined, because I remember a very sort of similar transfer window for Everton like a couple of years ago where they signed loads of players, but they just didn't gel. So I'm willing to wait and before jumping in. I was actually looking at Digne for game week 2, but then his stats post restart weren't that great either. I mean, he's just created one big chance post restart, which is kind of shocking for a player of his quality. Ideally, I would have punted on a defender if there was anyone in that 4.5 or even 5 million price range. I think Digne is probably zero point 0.5 million overpriced. There's Kenny, who I'm really interested in, particularly if he looks like starting. I might even start with him. But other than that, I'm not really considering anyone.
You don't
I'm
like
willing
James
to
at
wait.
7.5? I like that.
His price is good, but I'm willing to wait to see how he adapts in the Premier League. I'm not exactly sure on how he'll do. I'll wait for a week or two
Would
before
you have
jumping
started
on
with
board.
DCL if he had an easy game week 1 fixture?
I would have thought about it. At the moment, I'm not considering him.
All right. Because you're worried about what happened post game week 30.
Yes, that's one of the reasons, and I'm not entirely sure how they'll sort of gel straight away. So I mean, there are 2 points which I'm worried about. I mean, because their stats in the post restart, I know they didn't exactly have a good midfield, but they were like way too shocking for a team of Everton's caliber. I'd still expect them, to be somewhat better. I mean, they were only second to Norwich for big chances in that period, which is
But you don't count
borderline
that
shocking.
period. That's the point I'm trying to make. But that's fine.
I
That's fine.
get it. Yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but like the sample size for me was large enough to sort of take it seriously.
Fair enough. And a shout out to our friend on Twitter, Hindu Monkey. Him and me have been debating the merits of DCL, and I think he'll enjoy this little section. Let's move on now. We're going to talk about
preseason.
Why don't you start off on this one?
Sure. So it's been a bit weird this season, naturally. I think it's the most truncated preseason we've had in the last few years. This whole thing of having these internationals just a week before the league kicks off, it just seems very, very strange to me because teams have had very, very limited minutes. I think everyone's going to be quite rusty in general, how like we saw in the first few weeks after the restart. But still, there's still some lessons we could like probably learn now. The name on everybody's team sheet, the first name on my team sheet actually, is always the enabler, and this year it's Mitchell. I think he's going to be playing the first few games. He started all the recent friendlies for Palace, and Hodgson really rates him. He had a very good performance against Traore last year. So Hodgson, I think, made a statement that now he views Mitchell not just as backup, as competition to PVA. So he's someone definitely worth having at least till the first international break. And then we have going on to Palace. We've seen Zaha. He's been playing up top along with Ayewu. So that should be something you should monitor well. Now,
I like that because, when Palace used to play, the focus only used to be on Zaha all the time. Now they've signed a nice prospect in SA, and what I've read is he's really impressed in training and in a few of the preseason games.
They can't double up on him. Previously, all they were doing just putting 2-3 defenders on Zaha.
Exactly. That opens up space for Zaha, and I'm interested. I'm actually monitoring. They have a fixture shift around game week 6 or 7, and I like him. He's back to being a midfielder. He's always been a decent pick as a midfielder, and if they're a little better than last season, I'm interested.
Now, something else we've seen now with players testing positive for COVID. Souček, Liverpool's left back, Laporte. There's a lot of talk about how a deeper bench might be needed due to COVID. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Why don't you tell me first, big man?
No, I don't exactly buy the idea of investing in a heavy bench, particularly this early on the season. I'm fine to, look at the cheap players who are starting. I like to keep my bench as cheap as possible early on in the season. So if, for example, like you mentioned, Mitchell, if he looks like starting, I mean, I'll have him at 4 million. Then I'll probably have a 4.5 million defender as my second sub as well. So as long as my defenders are playing, I don't really care too much. I don't like investing my money on the bench early on. I want my first 11 to be where my money is invested. What about you?
Just on that note about Mitchell, there's a nice idea that PKW had from our common WhatsApp chat that we had, where he said that PVA is gonna be fit in 3, 4, 5 game weeks, and then there is Ferguson and Ward is terrible. Everybody hates Ward on our chat, and what if Ferguson looks like he's going to be fit in 4 or 5 game weeks, and if we're not looking to wildcard early, and if we assume that he's going to be starting over Ward, he might be a more long-term correct 4 million option compared to Mitchell. What are your thoughts there? It's a decent idea, I
It's a
think.
decent
Personally.
idea, actually. It all depends if you plan to use Mitchell, I think, in the first few weeks. I plan to use him in game week 3. I think when ASM has, I think, United. So I actually plan to play Mitchell in one of these weeks. So that's not going to work for me. Are either of you guys considering it?
I'm considering it, but then if I have Bruno on my bench in game week 1, I'll need uh, Mitchell in game week 1. So that depends on what I do with Bruno. And I don't buy into the whole needing a deeper bench again too much, because I feel like having this little international break is the stupidest mistake that these guys have done. I can't
Exactly.
believe this is happening. I can't believe they foresaw this.
Farcical.
We didn't have these problems post restart because everybody was in their bubbles and doing the things that they were supposed to do. I feel like all of this will tone down when everyone's back home and staying inside their bubbles.
Definitely, yeah. The whole thing of players going on holidays also, I think, was a really bad idea. A lot of
Terrible
players have
decision.
contracted problems because of that. So I think we are all pretty unanimous, and I don't think any of us is going to be having a very deep bench because of
Yep.
this. So,
Yep.
so the next lesson we have seen is that Spurs are actually looking pretty strong in preseason. You have to keep in mind this is first preseason that Jose is having with them. He joined only mid-season. Son and Ali have been looking good. What are your guys' thoughts on Son or Ali? Why don't you tell me first, TFF?
Yeah, I mean Spurs have looked well. They've looked really good in preseason. But the thing that worries me about them early on is their fixtures. I mean their fixtures. By that I mean their fixture congestion, and because of the Europa fixtures they're playing as well. I know Jose isn't exactly a manager who likes to rotate, but still, I mean, I won't be sort of Ali is someone I like, but I won't be too surprised if someone like an Ali got rotated. Son, I think, will be more secure, and he probably has more potential to play more games. But what worries me about Son is that he might be playing on the left rather than centrally, where ideally I'd want him closer to Kane. So I'm happy to wait on Spurs before I go there. Their defenders I like. I mean, I might invest in Dyer because he's the vice captain. He looks more secure. I don't think he'll miss too many games, and I mean, from what I've seen of Mourinho over the years, he doesn't really like tinkering defense at all. So I mean, if I'm going there, I might go with Dyer or even Doherty if I have the funds. But I'm not looking at one of the attackers. What about you, Late Riser?
Just based on the lessons learned from preseason, I'm going to assume that Ali is going to be supporting striker, and Son played on the left when they played. Or we spoke about this in the last pod.
Yep.
So I'm going to avoid Son for now, assuming that Ali is going to be playing closer to the goal. And I like the defense of Darius in my team.
So I had Ali in earlier, but now what I'm a bit worried about now, this Europa League schedule is also a bit different from previous seasons. Earlier we had home away ties. Now we have a lot of one-off matches, and a one-off match anything can happen. Now Spurs actually value the Europa League. They don't view it as an inconvenience, as say like United or even a Chelsea do. So they want to go farther in this. So he might prioritize his team. So somebody like Ali could start midweek and on the weekend as well. And so you'd see subs more likely at the 60th, 70th minute now. Son looks to me really fit. I think they had a game against Watford recently. And there's a clip of him chasing the ball in the 92nd, 93rd minute at full speed. So I really like that. It showed to me he's fit and he's actually raring to go. So I'm quite keen on Son over Ali for that reason. And Son generally just seems to be a player, whichever position he plays, he's selfish. He's on a few set pieces. He generally has the output.
He's
that
a
I
better
can back.
player.
He's a better player.
No doubt about it. In my head, he's a better player. The moment I know that Jose intends on playing him closer to the goal, I feel like 9 million is cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
He does mention that in that Spurs documentary also. I think he's telling like, or I think somebody whoever's playing the Son, you should get in the box. Anytime Aurier is on the right, I want you to get in the box. So I'm hoping now to Doherty and Son can combine for a few goals over there.
Right.
So let's move on now to Saints. Now, Saints have looked pretty good in preseason. I think that game against Swansea, they won 7-1. The main takeaway from that is that Adams started. What are you guys' thought on Che Adams? Let's start with you.
I like him. He's in my team. I think people worry about Long, but I don't feel like that's going to be a problem for the first few weeks. I don't think it's going to be a problem as long as Che keeps performing. And he seems in good nick, so it seems like a good punt to me at 6 million.
Prakash?
Yeah, I completely echo your thoughts because one thing I look forward to in preseason is watching which teams are carrying on their form from the last game weeks of the season, and Southampton seem to be a prime example of that. They were very strong post restart, and they've continued their form in preseason. And Che looks bang in form, so I'm pretty confident he's going to start early on, and he's in my team. I like him at 6 million.
I do too, but my only concern with him is if he has a couple of bad games, will you see Long or something starting? I guess so. Something you really need to monitor. So, but definitely, I think is one on the radar. So the last
Yep.
lesson we have seen that West Ham and Newcastle have both been looking poor defensively. Early on, they look like defenses that we can target. Not really much to talk about more there. So now let's move on to the fixtures. Have a closer look. I think let's start with Fulham Arsenal. How do you guys see this playing out, LR?
Uh, I don't see too many goals in this game because I've realized that Parker's, like you mentioned in the last part, that he's sort of like a defensive kind of manager. And Arsenal, don't really create too much. They don't create a high volume of chances. It's just that Oba is so good at his finishing that whatever few chances he gets, he converts. So I see this game sort of as a 2-0 or a 3-0 in Arsenal's favor. I don't see Fulham scoring because I feel like Arsenal have tightened up at the back.
We have a good stat for that later on. I'm not going to give you
Yeah.
that right now. Come on. So, what do you think, Bakar?
Yeah, I don't agree with late riser when he says that he expects Arsenal not to concede. I'm fairly confident that Fulham will score.
Based
Hopefully,
on
Mitrovic will be
Fulham's
involved.
ability to score a lot of goals in the
No,
championship, they weren't as prolific. They don't really
Yeah.
create
no,
that much.
It's not
it's
the
it's
same
more
Fulham team.
it's kind of more based on the myth that Arsenal are a much defensive team these days, which I will talk about later on. But yeah, I expect Fulham. I mean, I'm sure they'll be sort of motivated that it's their first game back in the Premier League and all that. So I expect them to score. But yes, I expect it to be a low-scoring game as well. I don't think Arsenal are the kind of team who sort of rip teams apart like City or Liverpool. I expect it to be 2-1 to Arsenal. What
Yeah.
about you, Zoff?
So I think it would have been a very different game if we had the Fulham crowd in. I've been to the stadium there before. It's a very close, very vocal crowd, and they would probably go for it if, there was a whole crowd around. But now with no crowd, I really think it's the game that Fulham will not want to lose. Everyone wants to get points on the board, so I think they'll be quite conservative. Now, Auba needs the spaces to attack. I don't think he's going to get as many spaces as he usually does. So I think this is going to be under 2.5 goals, maybe a 1-1, 1-0. I've got Mitrovic in. I hope he can do something. He's had a limited preseason, but he did score with Serbia, so the fitness is not a problem, and he's nailed for 90 minutes. So Mitrovic and Auba are the players I'm backing in that fixture. I don't see anybody you can really pick in the Arsenal defense. I know Saliba is popular, but I'm not really confident he's going to start. Do you guys think he will?
I'm not sure. I don't know what's going to happen
Exactly.
there. I don't know. I don't know if anything. I can say anything as certainly about Arsenal except for Auba. We don't even know who their keeper is going to be. Just a little something.
Exactly.
We know for a fact that Nketiah has played more preseason minutes than Lacazette, and this one is for the early wildcarders. If you're looking for a 2-game week punt, I feel like Nketiah is a good pick because they do have the fixtures, and I don't see Lacazette starting the first 2 games just because he's behind in preseason fitness.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Let's move on to the next game. Palace against Southampton. How do you guys see this playing out? Why don't you go first, TFF?
Yeah, I expect Southampton to win fairly comfortably. Um, I expect them to score two goals minimum based on their form of late. I expect Ings and Adams to be involved. I'm not too convinced that Palace will score because I don't sort of rate their attack too much. So I expect it to be something like a 2-0 Southampton, which is very similar to how their game played out last time
Last year, yep.
they played. Yeah. So I expect it to be 2-0 Southampton, something like that. What about you, LR?
I think most of the defense is injured, so I expect Saints to win this comfortably.
So, what
Yeah.
Saints assets are you guys going with?
I'm going with Adams.
At the moment, I also have Adams. I also have McCarthy in goal.
In
We all-
defense as well. I've got McCarthy and I've got KW. We have triple Saints.
You have a double defense now. I'm debating between James Ward-Prowse versus Armstrong versus ASM for that midfield slot. I have Adams in as well, and McCarthy. So, what do you guys think about that? That midfield. Do you think anyone's worth investing in the Saints midfield?
if you want to go safe, I like ASM or Armstrong, but I actually think the best pick of the bunch is Saka, because I feel like even though he's not showing too much volume in stats, I feel like he is going to start in the front three.
For the
And
first few games, right? Because Willian, I think on the right, will eventually get a look into the team.
yeah, whatever happens, I feel like Saka will always make his way into the first team because I really think he's that good a player. I rate him that much, and that's why I think he's a good player who's always going to be playing either an advanced eight or on the side of the wings for that Arsenal team.
So you guys don't like any either JWP or Armstrong in terms of the Saints
No,
mids?
personally, I think the bulk of the chances are going to be created and scored by the forwards themselves. So I don't really think the midfielders are someone I can consistently rely on for points.
Yeah, between these three, based on the signings that Newcastle have made, I prefer ASM.
Fair enough.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Fair enough. So let's move on to the next fixture we are looking at. Liverpool Leeds.
Big one.
The one to kick us off now. How is the fear? Now, Ella, are you worried about owning Mo yet? Not owning Mo yet?
I mean, I am worried. Let's be honest. Everybody's going to be owning. Most of the world is going to be captaining him. And this can go two ways. It can be Bielsa. Bielsa is known to have tunnel vision, so it can be him going for it. He doesn't care whether he's promoted to the Premier League, and they're going to be constantly pressing and all of that. And Liverpool could put 3 or 4 goals past them, but I feel like Leeds plays its best football in the first 6, 7, 8 game weeks of the season. It's what I've read because Bielsa trains them like a military general in preseason, and I think that's what he's going to be. That's what he will have done, and I feel like Liverpool will be in for a surprise. I still think Mo is a great captaincy option. I just feel like Oba is as good, or Timo Werner is as good a captaincy option, and I don't like Mo's fixtures game week 2, game week 3. I see a 2-1 win for Pool.
Yep. What do you think, TFF?
I don't think it would be a hammering. I do think Liverpool will win by probably around 2-0. I don't think Leeds will score. I'd be surprised if they did. I expect Liverpool to win. I don't think it'll be like 2 free scoring either.
When was the last time Liverpool kept a clean sheet? I don't remember.
I think it was the Palace.
Restart,
I think the Palace game.
Very
probably.
rare.
Probably the Palace game is what I can remember.
Yeah, that was the one they won 4-0.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, but I also think it could be similar to the Norwich game last year, which kicked us off. Like, the team to the championship coming up with no fear. So it could be an open game. It should be a fun game either way. I think it'll probably be something like 3-1, 3-2, something like that. Because
I won't be surprised if it's that open because Bielsa is known to go for it. But I think they're good enough to not be battered.
I mean, it's the prospect of seeing Klopp against, Klopp is sort of the new age manager, the new age philosophy, going up against Bielsa, who's a mentor now, to so many of these guys. I think is brilliant.
Yep, excited.
I'm quite excited about it. Now, let's just touch upon West Ham Newcastle really quick. How do you guys see this playing out? TFF?
I expect it to be a high scoring game. As you just mentioned, those two defenses haven't looked that well in preseason, and I expect this to play out like maybe 2-2, something like that. I see a lot of goals in this one.
That's interesting. That's interesting because I don't think Newcastle can really score too many. I'm more bullish on West Ham on this one. I think Antonio could probably do well. It all depends. I think Souček now is a big part of the team. With Souček out, I think they could probably miss some rhythm.
Yeah, and Newcastle are known for conceding set pieces. They concede a lot of set pieces.
Yep.
So I see a few goals for Antonio Souček on set pieces as well.
Yeah, I think I would back West Ham in this fixture personally.
I mean, I would back West Ham too. Then I saw the highlights of how they conceded 3 or 4 or 5 goals in preseason. They were
five
terrible.
versus Bournemouth.
Terrible. They
Terrible.
looked
Absolutely
so
terrible.
bad in defense.
But that was without Souček and Rice, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. Did Newcastle concede 5 against Middlesbrough as well?
They did, but they were down to 10 men. I think Lascelles had been sent off.
Oh,
So
okay.
some mitigating factor there. They actually had a second friendly also lined up against Middlesbrough, but they had to call it off because the players were just too pissed off at each other.
Oh, that doesn't sound too good.
Yeah, that's quite funny, isn't it? So now let's just quickly now try to pick our clean sheets. What teams do we like for clean sheets for the next week? Why don't you go first, LR?
So the 4 teams that I've picked for clean sheets, I feel like Liverpool, despite missing the defense a little earlier. Look likely to keep a clean sheet. I like Saints versus Palace to keep a clean sheet because I don't really rate the Palace attack as much. I also like Wolves against Sheffield. That game looks like that has few goals in it, just like the one uh, last season post restart. And I fancy Arsenal to keep a clean sheet against Fulham because I don't rate that Fulham attack.
What about you, Bakar?
If you ask me, I'd go with Liverpool. Spurs, as I said, have been really tight at home post restart. Just 3 big chances conceded in 5 games at home. So Liverpool, Spurs, Southampton, and Chelsea. I think Chelsea should also keep a clean sheet against Brighton.
Yep, that's a decent shot for me. Like, it's hard really to pick a banker. I like Spurs versus Everton. Liverpool, I do think Leeds will score. Liverpool were not very solid defensively. Sheffield, Wolves, I think could be clean sheets for both. Clean sheets for either. That's low scoring game. I don't see a clean sheet for Leicester against West Brom without Evans and the entire, like, I think even Morgan is out, so I don't even know who'll be playing centre back. So I do think there'll be more goals. I hope there'll be more goals, but I don't know because how it started. Like, if you remember, the first few weeks after the restart, there were a lot of clean sheets. So it might be the similar pattern again.
You know, even Sheffield might be a good shot. I mean, I think that Sheffield Wolves game has 0-0 written all over it.
Yep.
I mean, I think that either of those two teams will keep a clean sheet.
Exactly. I think that was 0-0 in the season, last season. I think Egan scored right at the end.
Yep.
It was
A
something
lot
like
of
that.
Double
Mr.
defense,
fans, yeah.
Wolves owners.
Yep. Clean sheet, wipeouts.
That was traumatic.
Okay, now the big one. Big decisions of the week. Captains. Who are you guys looking to captain? I think, Ella, without Mo, I think it's pretty obvious it's Oba for you.
Yep, for me it's Salah.
Yep.
I'm looking at Timo. If I know that Ziyech is going to be fit because I think there's enough firepower in that Chelsea attack, and I don't mind a little differential. So it's going to be either Oba or Timo.
Yeah, the Timo would be a big pick. I think not many people are going to go Timo. I think that we don't really need to talk much about why we are going for Oba or Salah. They're both good choices.
Yeah.
Would you guys captain Mane if you had him also? Similar?
I think he's a better option than Salah if you're looking at holding a Liverpool option, a Liverpool player short term. And again, I feel like historically he's got a tendency. I spoke about this in the last pod as well. To start off seasons well, he's looking really sharp. I like Mane. I feel like Salah being a much more premium and better asset compared to Mane is a little bit overdone. And basing on what I've seen so far, Mane definitely looks the sharper player. He looks fitter, he looks sharper, he's spending more time in the box, he's getting bulk of the big chances, and I like him more than Salah.
Yeah, I think he's been more consistent than Salah also at home recently. I don't have the stats, but I do remember reading that somewhere. Speaking of stats, now TFF, this is your section, the top 3 stats for the game week. Why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, so I have three stats for our viewers. The first one is regarding the Southampton Palace game. That's so the stat is that no team other than City, Chelsea, and Man United have created more chances away from home, big chances away from home, than Southampton have post restart. And over this period, Crystal Palace are second worst for big chances conceded per game too. So what I'm trying to say is that this game has an Adams or an Ings Hall written all over it, hopefully. The second stat I have for you is that no player has accumulated more big chances than Antonio since the restart, and he's like top of the charts by a mile. He's up against an Arsenal defense and then Newcastle in game week 1 and then an Arsenal defense. So, I mean, contrary to popular opinion, I think he can actually start well as well early on. And then the third stat I have for you is regarding what we were discussing earlier regarding the Arsenal defense. So there's this popular myth floating around these days that Arsenal have found newfound defensive solidity in their squad and they're much better in terms of conceding big chances. But I was actually looking at the stats very recently, and I saw that I noticed that Arsenal are actually only third to Watford and Sheffield United for big chances conceded post the restart, and I was actually quite alarmed by that. And they were actually second worst for XGC in this run too, expected goals conceded. So this is something alarming, and this is why this is exactly why I think that Mitrovic could start well in game week 1. And so could Antonio in game week 2. I mean, that's what I read into these numbers.
Yeah, if you think about it, now that you mentioned this, Martinez did make a bunch of saves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really good
Yep.
saves. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, interesting. I just don't rate that Fulham attack. That's my thing.
Fair enough. Now the next section is where we all pick a differential for the week. According to me, LR has cheated a little bit. He's picked over here Kai Havertz. Probably the only time we're going to see Kai Havertz as a differential. I guess it still qualifies because he's at low ownership, but I still think it's cheating.
Yeah, it is cheating, but I'm going to cheat because it's the only time I'm going to get to do it.
Yep. And I see now Bakar has gone for Harvey Barnes. I think you mentioned a little bit about him. Why don't you talk us more about him?
Yes, I talked a bit about him. The thing is that I expect him to start because Leicester don't have too many centre backs available, and I expect Rodgers to line up in a 4-2-3-1. And when he starts in that formation, usually I've noticed that he posts good numbers. He creates chances for Vardy. He could probably get on the end of a couple of big chances himself. So at 7 million, I think he's probably worth a shout.
I've gone for Che Adams. I think he's going to
Yeah.
start. I think he's good value. There's really much explanation over there. Now let's move on to the long-awaited team reveals. Now we shall start off with India's number one. Here we go, guys. So for the benefit of our audio listeners, please walk us through the team.
I'm just going to take you guys through my team. At the moment, and keeper, I have McCarthy. He's not changed any of my tinkers. I spoke about him last season, so last pods. I'm not going to waste too much time talking about it. I've got Trent and Dyer as my perma plays in defense. The thing I like about Dyer is I don't really see a bad fixture as a bad fixture defensively because we all know that Jose loves to park that bus, and he could pull off a clean sheet in the tougher games as well. So I like having them as perma plays, and then I'm playing two rotating 4.5s in Kyle Walker-Peters and Taylor. I haven't really looked into the rotation too much, but these are just two defenses that I trust, I like, and I like these players. So I think more often than not, I'll be able to get away having these four as my core defense. And I've got Mitchell as my fifth defender because currently I have Bruno Fernandes on my bench. So I feel like he'll be useful for me in Game Week 1. In midfield, I've made the compromise of Mo Salah. I've spoken about my reasoning a lot already on that pod. So who do I have? I have Aubameyang, seems like an obvious no-brainer. And the rest of my midfield is Bruno Fernandes, Kai Havertz, and Dele Alli. I think we've spoken about all these three players. I feel like Bruno is going to be great. Game week 2 to 5, start where he's left off. So I have those four in my midfield. And in attack, I have Timo Werner. Again, I've spoken about him a lot. I have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I have Che Adams. One player that I'm missing out on in my team is Anthony Martial because I really, really like him. He's my favored United asset, but I just like what Calvert-Lewin and Adams offer for their prices, and I don't think anyone else, especially since Greenwood and Foden are in a little bit of trouble, are offering quite the consistency that a Calvert-Lewin and Adams will offer. And I'm sort of looking at them as my glue guys who will stick around in my team for a while, so that I can continue switching the big hitters, which I like doing. So that's my team. I've got Bissouma as my 4.5 midfielder at the moment because I feel like he's the only one capable of being fairly nailed and somewhat attacking compared to all the other options.
That midfield is stacked. Auba, Havertz, Ali, Bruno. That midfield it just shows you what no Salah can bring.
Exactly, right. And if Chelsea and United continue where they left off from in Project Restart, then I feel like it might work.
Yes, I mean this is another exciting point you've made.
Yep. Looks great. Now we move on now to big man Bakar's team. Bakar, would you just walk us through?
I think we've lost Bakar temporarily. So Zoff, why don't you go on and take us through your team?
Cool. I'm just going to walk you guys through Bakar's team, which he sent us through anyway. Just really quick. The main difference he's got double Liverpool defense with Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, with Justin McCarthy in goal, ASM, Havertz, Salah, Auba in midfield, Mitrovic, Adams, Werner up top with Johnson, Bissouma, and Ayling. So the main differentiator you see here from most teams is that he's got Robertson along with Alexander, which is a bit risky given that Liverpool have some tough fixtures to start off, but Robbo is pretty much like a midfielder in terms of his output. So it's a
And in
decent
great
strategy
form,
there.
he's looking.
He was on
so
fire in
attentive.
the Shield. I think he was the
Yeah.
primary creating outlet, and he had a very strong end also to the season. in terms of the
Exactly.
restart. So that's
So,
definitely not a bad pick.
if I was if I had a different playing style and if I was comfortable investing more in my defense, I'd definitely get Robertson in my team because he's perfect keep and forget, don't really need to think about it kind of player, and he's looking really good.
Yep, makes sense. Cool. I'm just gonna go walk you guys through my team. So I've got the template McCarthy in goal, like everyone else. TAA. Now in defense, now I've put in Saiss in there. Oh, after the Vinagre news, I think Saiss is a little bit undervalued this season. I'd probably have priced him at 5.5. He has a decent bit of goal threat that's not really talked about, and he's a BPS machine. Most of the time, he outscored Bowley for bonus points. Now I've got Doherty in there. I'm a fan of Jose right backs. Ivanovic comes to mind, and somebody like Doherty actually has the attacking output compared to Aurea. So there's a lot of talk about how he might not be as effective because it's a back four, but Jose's system of the right back is pretty much like a wing back anyway. So he's going to get into the box a lot, and I generally like my defenders to have potential for returns at both ends of the pitch. It's quite boring when you have a defender who can only get a clean sheet. Like, once the clean sheet is gone, it's dull. So the defender has to have potential to get a 10, 12, 15-point score. That's what I really want from my defense.
You're making me think about size over there, which I never really considered until now.
Yeah, because I want a piece of Wolves, and Size is, I think, really, if you can curb his yellow card instinct, he could be a really good pick. So now in midfield, I've got Salah, Oba, Son, ASM. Don't really need to talk much about these guys. Now, Adams versus Ings was something I was debating. I had Ings in there earlier. Now, what I did now, there's the 2.5 difference. I spread the cash around. I've upgraded Ali to Son, Vinagre to Size, and Dyer to Doherty. So I've given myself, I think, 3 potential outlets for better amount of points. So I think the trade-off there is sort of justified since I'm not never going to captain Ings. And Adams, again, could be a value pick. So... And then on the bench is Nyland, Ayling, Mitchell, Gordon. Nothing special there.
Any money in the bank?
No, not yet. I really don't know where I could downgrade to get some money. I would like ideally to keep 0.5 just so that I have some freedom. But now I have a lot of now, like Werner can become Marshall quite easily, so that's not a problem. Son can become Havertz. So these are all downward moves. So I'd rather put the money on the pitch.
Are you going to captain? Who are you going to captain game week 2, Oba?
Game week 2 Alba, game week 1 Salah.
So you don't have a Man United plan at the moment for
At the moment, no, I'm probably going to observe how they kick off against Palace. If they look good, I'll probably bring somebody in against Brighton. I'm ideally going to look to save a transfer in game week 2 because game week 1 can be quite erratic. I'd rather save the transfer in game week 2 if necessary, bring in 3 players in game week 3. That's something that worked for me last year. I think last year in game week 3, I brought in Pokey, KDB, and McGinn, who I think had good strong starts. They gained you a lot of value. So I'd rather have that freedom there. So now I think let's just quickly do a Q&A. We can take over the questions we had allotted to Bakar since he had some technical difficulties. Let's just go through that.
I'll read them out and I think we'll take turns to just answer them.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. The first question we have is from FPL Gunman. Thoughts on Ings to Marshall with 0.5 in the bank? Should I really be considering dropping Ings after game week 1?
So you got this?
No, this is yours to answer.
Oh, right. Sorry. So yeah. Well, I think one game week is very difficult to judge a potential of how anyone performs. I'd like more to look at how the team is doing. Now, if Saints are creating chances, are Saints blunt now? If Saints are looking good, then I think somebody like Ings could actually match Marshall. So I wouldn't necessarily make that move without even watching Marshall play. Maybe in game week 3, after you have 2 game weeks of data where you can see how Ings is doing, how Marshall is doing, then make the move. Keeping the money in the bank is a reasonable idea. It gives you the option in case Ings gets injured, which is quite possible. But I wouldn't necessarily do the move regardless.
I think another point I'd just like to add is if you think that Oba is looking underwhelming game week 1 and Marshall and the Saints have battered Palace and Palace look like defensively very weak, and if Marshall looks like the standout captaincy option for game week 2, I think it's worth doing it. Just like to add that, do it if you really think it's the standout captaincy option.
But how do you know if he's a standout captaincy option if he hasn't played yet?
Based on project restart data.
Correct. But again, I would rather put my captain on game week 2 on someone who have seen some form from game week 1. But you made a good point with Oba. If Oba is not looking on fire, but he is playing West Ham. So even if Oba does poorly in game week 1, I wouldn't read that too much into that in game week 2.
Yeah, I think that's where our contrasting managerial styles show up in terms of appetite for risk. That's
exactly.
Yeah. Next question is from Jack Burgess. I think I'll take this one. What are your thoughts on rotating keepers? I'm looking at rotating Ramsdale and McCarthy for the first 10 games or so. I haven't rotated my goalkeeping spot for the last 6 or 7 years. I feel like the majority of the what you're doing with rotation is adding another decision week on week, and the chances for that decision coming through are actually lower because a lot of the really good hauls that these cheaper keepers get are against the good teams when they're able to pull off a clean sheet, saving a lot of shots against the good teams. So I feel like just pick a good defense because goalkeepers get points for saves, and you must not forget them. And you are ruling out getting a bunch of save points when you're looking to rotate goalkeepers based on fixtures.
Yep, for sure.
Next question is for use of after game week 2, how much consideration have you given to captaincy over the next 3 or 4 game weeks? Naturally, many people are leaning towards Salah and a Man City mid as premium mids, but they don't rotate that well for captaincy.
So I've written down my captaincy, what I've planned for the next 5 game weeks. Again, this could change completely depending on form. So I have Salah here for game week 1, Auba for game week 2, KDB for game week 3 against Leicester, Chelsea for game week 4. I think they have a home game against Palace, and then KDB for game week 5 against one of his favorites opponents, Arsenal. You remember we talked about that, how he plays KDB further forward in these big games. So there's something I want to look at this season.
Is this generally something you do? I don't have this practice as a manager. Do you note down your captains for the next 3 or 4 game weeks throughout the season?
I do it to a certain extent, yes, because I do want to see when I want to bring in a certain player. I start monitoring that player's form. So I do generally look at for the next 4.
Okay.
Not probably longer
Interesting.
than that.
Interesting, because I don't do that. I'm very instinctive. I was like, okay, who do we have as captain this weekend? Probably that's why I end up taking more hits for the ideal captaincy
I just
option.
love to plan. I love to plan. That's what
Fair
it
enough.
is.
Fair enough. Okay, next question is from Srirag Murli. I think I'll take this one. Is there a reason why I should not go with a defense of Tar, Robertson, Doherty, and 2 4.0 players? My answer to this would be there's no problem with going in with a big defense. I feel like if you have 2 or 3 it depends on your strategy. As long as you have a strategy in your head in terms of you're having at least 2 or 3 captaincy options week on week, it's all right. All these 3 players are going to be offering great value, and you don't need to change them for a long time. Just know that you're going to be having as not heavy an attack as the others, and if you're comfortable doing that, it's fine. I just feel like we really don't have 2 standout. We don't even have one standout 4.0 defender right now. So I'd upgrade maybe one single 4.0 defender to a 4.5 defender just so that you have some cover on bench, and then go ahead with this defense.
Makes sense. Absolutely agree.
The next question is for you. This is from FPL Sit 7. What are your views on Kane? I mean, Kane is a good shot because of his fixtures, but the downside here is it's Jose's team, not a 4 or 5 goal scoring team. So is it worth going Kane or even Son?
Son, you know my views on Son, so I won't touch upon that. Now the thing is with Kane is he's had a very limited preseason due to he had to isolate and all that stuff. But I'm seeing that he's starting for England today. He started the last game, and Jose is definitely going to throw him in the starting lineup regardless. And now there's a definite benefit with Kane compared to the other attackers with the Europa League congestion. Kane's going to play 90 minutes regardless. So there's definitely a benefit there, but at 10.5, I don't know if I still feel confident enough captaining him early doors. So I think no Kane for me.
I agree because I feel like there are better teams to target for captaincy early doors, but I don't mind him
Chelsea.
as a 1, 2, 3 game week punt. And if he looks good in the first game week, captain him second game week. I don't mind that price point because Aguero.
Yep. That's a good point as well.
The next question, this is from Yusuf 97902911. Think there might be value in owning Ryan due to the arrival of Ben White to Brighton and them playing 3 at the back lately, considering also how much saves and bonus points he scores normally. What do you think, Zoff?
I think Ryan is, like he said, is a bonus point machine, but the first 5 fixtures are really, really bad. So Ben White's definitely going to make some improvement to their defense, but at 4.5, I think when there's a McCarthy option with those fixtures and a better defense overall, I really can't look towards Ryan. Maybe later on in the season. I think definitely at some point I could see myself owning Ryan, but not early doors.
And also, I feel like Brighton don't have a tendency to sit back and defend. You know, they have a tendency to play, which is why I like
Captain against them. Yeah.
Our good friend Gio did a lot of targeting Brighton for the captaincies. Because, and it was a great point to mention, I think we just should just add here, when you're talking about captaining a player, you should be mindful of the opposition and whether they have a tendency to, park the bus. If it might be a much better option to captain against teams that have a tendency to play like West Ham or Newcastle.
Correct. Like Burnley, like I remember initially we always looked at Burnley as a fixture to captain, but very often doesn't work out because they just park 10 men in the box and you have Pope saving so many shots.
Yes.
So that's
All right.
a valid point.
The next question is from El Nino Rajaram _28. Most are planning ahead for their transfers in game week 2 and 3. What is your thinking of planning ahead, and how do you navigate if the plan backfires? My simple answer is it's good to plan. I feel like there's nothing wrong in having a plan, but just be flexible if something goes wrong. And what do you do if it backfires? If it backfires to a little extent, take hits, cure your team early, because I feel like there's too much value in being ahead of the curve early season. And if there's too many problems in your team, don't be afraid to wildcard.
Yep, I agree.
Next question is from my good friend on Twitter, Rich_FPL. Incredible debut episode, loved it. Thank you, Rich. Question: can we make a competitive game week 1 team whilst holding United City assets on the bench, or is it better to take hits, use transfers to bring them in?
I mean, I mentioned this earlier. I prefer to have the money work for you. There's no guarantee United hit the ground running. You never know how things are going to work out. So I'd rather stick with the player who you feel is going to start, going to get you points. Give him a chance in game week 2 and assess in game week 3 when to move.
Fair point. I'm going to throw this one to you as well because it's about a Chelsea player. It's from our good friend Top Marks. Is Thiago Silva going to struggle in the Premier League? He's 36 at the end of the month.
I mean, he didn't struggle in the Champions League. So I think he'll be all right against the likes of Leeds Mousset and Callum Wilson.
And I feel like the Chelsea defense needs somebody who's
It needs a leader. It needs somebody. It needs a presence. So I don't think we would necessarily I think we are very raw in terms of the players we have now. He's obviously not going to play every game. I think he's going to pick and choose. He might not, for example, play them against a deep block against a Newcastle where he's just going to be chilling at the back. He's probably going to play them in the games where he requires in the Champions League, games against the top 4, top 6, more away games. Also, I think away is where our defense really suffered last year. I think we had one away clean sheet all season. So I think that's where we will see him a lot more.
Yeah, and I feel like he's just going to be guiding and directing that defense, orchestrating that defense. They don't have somebody who's doing that for them. So I think he's going to be very useful.
Yep.
All right. And then last question of the day, again from Top Marks. I think both of us can take it. Last season was the first time ever that 8 attacking players, mids or forwards, scored over 200 points. Will that happen again this season?
I think so. Why not? Just look at the amount of talent that's in the EPL this year. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. You have the likes of James Rodriguez, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, Harry Kane, Bruno Fernandes. I mean,
Bruno scored 100 plus points in season.
The amount of talent this year in the league is absolutely incredible. I think it's about possibly even more than 8 players. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I talk about that Mo Salah captaincy 12 million. I wonder if that becomes a thing because they're expensive, and if the other teams can match up, just something to monitor.
Absolutely. Right. I think we are close to wrapped up now. I think we did well on time this time. I didn't have to prod you guys. I think we got about 80 minutes. So that was fun.
Yep. And again, a big thank you for DreamSetGo and Fantasy Football Scout for supporting us. Just mention again that all the stats that we've spoken about on this podcast are from Fantasy Football Scout. So if you want to register, the details will be in the links below. And if you want to go visit DreamSetGo, again, the links will be below. Zofar, next time we will be talking, we'll have our Game Week 1 scores in front of us. Exciting. Yeah. Yep. See you next week. Good luck. See you. Bye-bye.